You know, during World War II, there was a secret battle being fought, not with guns and tanks, but with math and with machines. This was a massive intellectual arms race to break the enemy's most secret codes. It was a high-stakes game that really stretched from the ancient world of Roman generals all the way to what would become the dawn of the computer age. So today, we're going to crack open the story of how the Allies unraveled Nazi Germany's ultimate secret, the Enigma machine. So, how in the world do they do it? Well, our journey today is going to take us from the simple secrets of Roman generals to the mind-bending complexity of the so-called unbreakable Enigma. We'll meet the forgotten Polish heroes who first found a crack in the code, see how Bletchley Park turned that crack into a floodgate of intelligence, and explore the different mindsets it took to win this secret war. And finally, we'll see how the echoes of this battle of wits are still all around us in our digital world today. All right, to really get how the most complex code of its time was broken, we have to start with one of the simplest. We've got to go back more than 2,000 years to meet the granddaddy of all military encryption. It's called the Caesar cipher. Yep, named after that Caesar, the Roman general who needed a way to protect his military messages. It's a type of substitution cipher, which is just a fancy way of saying you swap each letter for a different one. The secret is that the swap follows a very simple, fixed rule. Okay, here's exactly how it works. You take your original message, what we call the plain text, like attack it once. Then you pick a secret number, and that's your key. Let's just say we pick 4. All you do is shift every letter in your message forward 4 places in the alphabet. So A becomes E, T becomes X, and so on. Your secret message, the ciphertext, is now XCXECOSRJI. To read it, all your friend has to do is know the key is 4 and just shift everything back. Simple.
And we know about this thanks to the Roman historian Suetonius. He's the one who wrote that Caesar himself used a shift of 3. Now, to us, that sounds almost laughably simple, right? But you gotta remember, in a world where very few people could even read, let alone understand cryptography, this simple shift was more than enough to make a message completely unintelligible to the enemy.
And that is the key question. For centuries, this method was surprisingly effective. But the whole system has a fatal flaw. I mean, think about it. Since there are only 26 letters in the alphabet, there are only 25 possible keys you could use. You could literally just sit there and try every single one until the message makes sense. But an even more powerful technique was discovered, one that could break even more complex codes.
You see, every language has a kind of hidden fingerprint. In English, for example, certain letters just show up way more often than others. E and T are everywhere, while Q and Z are pretty rare. Now, the Caesar cipher shifts the letters around, but it can't hide this underlying frequency. So if you get a coded message and you see the letter H a ton, there's a really good chance it's just a shifted E. This technique, called frequency analysis, basically makes simple substitution ciphers like this totally vulnerable. Now fast forward to the 1920s and 30s. Germany was well aware of this weakness. So their answer was to create a machine that didn't just use one substitution alphabet, but a brand new one for every single letter of a message. They designed it to be, for all intents and purposes, mathematically unbreakable.
And this is it, the Enigma machine. It might look a bit like a typewriter, but it's an electromechanical marvel of complexity. When an operator pressed a key, it sent an electric current on a wild journey through an intricate maze of rotating wheels and cross-wired cables, finally lighting up a different letter. And the crazy part? With each key press, the maze itself changed.
Just to give you a sense of the challenge, we have to talk numbers. The 3 rotating wheels, the rotors, didn't just turn in a simple 1, 2, 3 way. They stepped kind of like an old car's odometer. That meant the machine wouldn't repeat the same substitution alphabet for over 16,900 characters. That's way longer than this entire explainer. And that was just the beginning. The operator could change the order of the rotors, change their starting positions, and then use a plugboard to swap pairs of letters, pushing the total number of possible keys into the trillions. Brute force was just completely off the table. This diagram really shows the incredible leap in complexity. On one side, you have the Caesar cipher, a simple straight line. On the other, you see the path electricity takes in the Enigma. It goes from the keyboard, through the plugboard that might swap the letter, then through 3 different rotors, scrambling it more each time. Then it hits the reflector at the end, which is crucial. It sends the current back through the rotors on a totally different path, back through the plugboard again before finally lighting up the encrypted letter.
And every time you press a key, that first rotor clicks forward, changing the entire electrical maze. This constant change is exactly what was designed to make frequency analysis impossible.
So the key takeaway is that its strength came from all these different layers of complexity. It was a polyalphabetic cipher, thanks to those rotating wheels. The plugboard added a whole other layer of scrambling, and that reflector, the Umkehrwalze, it guaranteed something called reciprocity, which just means if A encrypted to T, then T would encrypt back to A. This actually made the machine easier for the Germans to use, but it was also a tiny gift to the codebreakers. It created a small logical flaw they could exploit. A letter could never encrypt as itself.
For years, the world's best codebreakers, the French, the British, they all looked at Enigma and basically declared it unbreakable. They figured the only way to get its secrets was with spies. But in Poland, a small team of brilliant young mathematicians decided to attack the machine not with spies, but with pure, beautiful logic. This Polish team, led by a mathematician named Marian Rejejewski, they didn't even focus on the main message. They found a weakness in how the Germans encrypted the daily three-letter key. Rejejewski realized that even though the encryption changed constantly, it created these subtle, repeating patterns. He treated the whole thing not as a language problem, but as a pure math problem. And the cyclometer was their solution, a machine they built to find these hidden mathematical fingerprints and create a giant catalog linking them to the machine's daily settings. So, when the Germans changed their procedures in 1938, making the cyclometer obsolete, did the Poles give up? Nope, they adapted. Henryk Zagolski developed this unbelievably ingenious method. These are Zagolski sheets, basically massive sets of paper with specifically placed holes. By layering the sheets for messages that had certain repeated patterns and putting them on a light table, the correct daily key could be found when light finally shone through a single aligned hole. It was this brilliant analog form of data analysis, like a physical search engine for finding the day's key. And then came the bomba. Now, it's not a bomb in the explosive sense. The name probably came from a popular ice cream dessert in Poland at the time. It was an electromechanical device that automated the search. It was basically 6 Enigma replicas wired together, and it just clattered away, testing key after key, stopping when it found a possible solution. This machine was the direct ancestor of the famous British Bombay at Bletchley Park. So, as Germany was getting ready to invade Poland in 1939, the Polish team made a historic decision. They invited their British and French allies to a secret meeting and just gave them everything: replica Enigma machines, blueprints for the bomba, all of their mathematical methods. One historian called it a priceless gift, and it was. It formed the absolute foundation for the Allies' greatest intelligence operation of the war. And that operation was centered at Bletchley Park, this Victorian mansion northwest of London that was codenamed Station X. What started as this small gathering of academics just exploded into a massive intelligence factory. Different wooden huts specialized in different tasks. You had Hut 6 tackling Army and Air Force Enigma, while Hut 8, led by none other than Alan Turing, focused on the much harder naval Enigma. I mean, by the end of the war, almost 10,000 people, most of them women, were working there around the clock. Gordon Welchman, who was the head of Hut 6, he absolutely nailed what they were up against. The German Blitzkrieg, their lightning war, wasn't just about tanks. It was a revolution in communication. You had fast-moving forces being coordinated by this constant stream of radio messages, all secured by Enigma. So, to defeat the Blitzkrieg, the Allies had to get inside that information loop. They had to read those messages in real time. But here's the thing. The British didn't just copy and paste the Polish methods. Armed with this incredible foundational knowledge, they scaled up the operation massively and developed their own powerful techniques. And this led to 2 really distinct but complementary philosophies for cracking the code. So, this is the crucial difference. The Polish team's genius was in attacking the system itself, using pure mathematics to find flaws in the protocol. It was abstract, it was elegant, it was brilliant. The British approach, on the other hand, which was really pioneered by Alan Turing, was more psychological. Turing correctly guessed that the Germans would eventually fix the system's mathematical flaws, so he decided to attack the operators to exploit human predictability. They hunted for what they called cribs, which were just words they were almost certain would be in the message, like Wetterbericht for a weather report, or, and this is a famous one, the standard sign-off, Heil Hitler. The breaking of Enigma was, you could argue, the single most important intelligence achievement of the entire war. But its impact didn't just end in 1945. No way. The secret work done in those huts fundamentally reshaped technology, and really the modern world we live in. The intelligence that they got from these Enigma decrypts was codenamed Ultra.
And it was absolutely pivotal in the Battle of Britain, the Battle of the Atlantic, the landings on D-Day. Historians estimate that it shortened the war by at least 2 years, maybe even 4, saving millions of lives. But beyond the battlefield, the machines that were built to break Enigma, like Turing's bomb bee and the later Colossus computer, they weren't just codebreakers. They were the direct ancestors of the modern computer. The need to perform millions of logical operations at incredible speeds forced the engineers at Bletchley Park to invent the very techniques that would become the foundation of our digital age.
Which really leaves us with a final thought. This entire story, from a simple shift cipher to this electromechanical beast, is all about a fundamental technological race, a race that is still going on today in our own world of digital encryption. And it proves that no system is ever truly unbreakable, because the battle isn't just between machines. It's between the human minds that create them and the human minds that are always seeking to break them.